Okay. So Baruch Hashem, we're together. Before we start, I just want to make a quick tefillah. Rabbi Nachman explains in the 20th lesson of Likutey Moharan that the mistake that Moshe Rabbeinu made, just hard to say that Moshe Rabbeinu made a mistake, but he did make some type of error, at least for him, which was that he relied on his own tzidkus in order to draw down Torah for the Jewish people who really needed it. And the truth is that the greatest revelation of Torah comes through the gathering of Jewish souls and all of them connecting and attaching together. So when Hashem told Moshe, speak to the rock, he was saying to Makasher everyone together with you through speech, through that to draw down the Torah, as opposed to hitting it with the stick, which the stick was his staff of mitzvot and masim tovim, meaning this was his great level of tzidkus that he was using. Really, Rabbi Nachman says he should have been using that within an experience of someone teaching and someone receiving, the good in the teacher nullifies the ra, which is within the students. That's where the teacher's tzidkus is supposed to be used, but not to draw down Torah. That needs to be a free gift, just like getting to the land of Israel. So, and then all the more so when you're not holding at such a level, and we're just friends, then we really have to come together and ask Hashem. So I hope Bezrat Hashem, all our souls should be connected, all the people who are here physically right now, all the people who Bezrat Hashem are going to be watching online, and in the future, whoever will see this in the time to come, all of our souls are combined and receiving and drawing down a very high level of Torah, and it should be exactly what everyone needs to hear as we move into Elul, as we move into Rosh Hashanah, trying to get closer to Hashem, trying to get closer to His Torah, trying to get closer to the Tzaddik Emet, trying to get closer to our true selves. Okay? I had a thought, we're called Atik Yomin, very lofty name, the Ancient of Days. I don't know, something about this makes me feel a certain way every time I hear it. So I was thinking about what Torah actually speaks about Atik Yomin. And I realized there's a Rosh Hashanah Torah that speaks about Atik Yomin. And this Torah is a very special Torah. This Torah was given in 1806, which was 4 years before Rabbeinu was Nifter, which placed him at 34 years old. And when Rabbi Nachman gave this lesson, as was often the case, his Hasidim would gather around him for Rosh Hashanah, and he would sit there, and they used to talk about how his face would change colors. What? And the expressions that were going on in his face, people think, when they read Likutey Moharan, it must have been because that's the way it looks. Said he would sit there for an hour before he can get a word out of his mouth. And they said they had such pachad, such yira, such awe, such fear, just looking at him, waiting for him to speak, their knees would buckle, just watching. And this specific day, Rosh Hashanah, was the day that was the most like that. And this was like that. All the Hasidim were gathered around, and they asked him, they asked Rabbeinu, how can somebody sleep 70 years? They're asking about the famous Gemara. How can a person, okay, if you're secular, so you just say it's a story. But let's say we believe that the Gemara is true. How does a person sleep for 70 years? So Rabbi Nachman gave the answer in this lesson. And when he gave the answer, he said, awaken, you sleepers. And he said that everyone there started to feel these hihurim of tshuva that they never felt before. And it was so intense and it was so palpable. And after that, Rabbi Nachman took a while before he started speaking again. And all the Hasidim said that they realized afterwards, when they spoke to each other about their experience, how they all started having a very intense hihurim of tshuva, that Rabbeinu was doing tikkunim with them right then and there, and that's why he wasn't speaking during that time.
Awesome.
So amazing, just unbelievable. So that's this lesson. Now, how does this lesson start? Rabbi Nachman brings. Let me say one more thing. Based on this Torah, Rabbi Nachman said a very famous statement. There are 3 things that people say that I say are not true. And when I say what I say, they're going to say it's not true. but it was implicit in what he was saying that, what I'm saying is actually the truth. So what do Rabbi Nachman say? People say that stories put you to sleep, but I say stories have an unbelievable ability to wake you up. 2, people say that talking can't make a woman conceive, but I say that talking and telling stories can make women pregnant. 3, you never heard that when you went to the doctor, right? And they were trying to figure out how the fertilization. Talk to the baby. No, okay. 3, he said, people think that the great tzaddik doesn't need money. But I see the great tzaddik needs all the wealth in the world. Because for the greatest revelation of Torah and the greatest contemplation of Torah, you need the greatest amount of wealth. There actually is a famous story which is not so spoken about because it painted a great tzaddik in a certain light. It was a big split between the Noam Elimelech and his biggest chassid. At some point, the Noam Elimelech, towards the end of his life, made a takana that all of the chassidim should give him all their money. And at that point, this chassid was like, that's a little too much. I don't know, how are we giving you all our money? Okay, obviously the Noam Elimelech, they called him the little Baal Shem Tov. He was a tzaddik unlike we've ever had in the world, in the history of the world, right? But he felt that whatever was needed for the world, for the Jewish people, required that he had their money. Maybe you could see a source for the Yosef Tzaddik, right? All the Jews and all the world is coming to Mitzrayim, and they have to sell all of their stuff to Yosef, right? They're giving him all their stuff so they can get whatever it is that they need. But he says these 3 things, and they're all you're going to see in this lesson. And the last thing that I want to say is that a few months prior to this lesson, Rabbi Nachman told the first of his Sipuri Masiot, which is the Lost Princess. Okay? He told that, and he said that you're not listening to my Torah, meaning it's not waking you up. I'm going to have to start telling you stories. So we see the connection between these things. It's taught in Breslov Chassidut that this entire lesson is the perush, is the explanation for that first story in Sipur Masiot. It's very interesting because if you look at the story, you don't see so many connections. So I think it would be pretty cool at the end of the lesson, Bezrat Hashem, we come together and we try and see how we could place all the different parts of the story in this Torah. Okay? These are the parts. Now, he brings a Zohar in the beginning. This Zohar is called Idra Rabba Kadisha. So you see that's how it starts. In the Zohar, there are 2 very famous parts of the Zohar called the Idra Rabba and the Idra Zuta. The Idra Rabba, and by the way, this is lesson 60, lesson Samech in the first section of Moharan, if you want to look on or if you want to review after. 2 very famous sections. One of them was given when the Rashbi was in the cave with his son, and he felt this urge to give over all the secrets of Torah that he had been receiving from Shemayim while he was in the cave. Those secrets had to do with what's called Partsufim. In Kabbalah, most people know of the Sfirot. They are these divine emanations, these 10 revelations of creative energy that Hashem uses to guide and orchestrate reality, to create reality, to reveal himself through. There are also 10 contractions in which he draws down his light through so we can actually experience him and the light's not too intense, right? A lot of people know about the 10 Sfirot, but not as many people know about the Partsufim. So the best way to understand it, I went to social work school. So the simplest way I could think of it is like systems, like systems theory, right? When you have the type of systems that you use when it comes to, let's say, social welfare, right? There are certain systems and there's certain configurations of those systems that gives birth to different realities. Now, in another society, it's the same exact components, but the system is aligned differently. And because of that, what comes out of that configuration looks different. Or more put simply, everybody has these 10 sfirot in their soul, but we're all very different. So why is that? Because some of us are leaning more towards chesed, some of us more towards gevurah, some of us more towards tiferet, right? A lot of it has to do with which partsuf we're connected to, how we're connected to it, right? So there's 5 partsufim. So we're back to school. You ready? But this is the best school. School of Hard Knocks. You heard of it? But instead of Jack Black, we got... I don't know, I'm trying to think of something witty with Rabbi Nachman. It's not coming to mind. Okay? The School of Rabbeinu. Okay? Rock Rabbeinu. Call it Rock Rabbeinu. Okay? Rock Rabbeinu. The School of Hard Rock. Right? It's pretty good. Rock Rabbeinu. By the way, I am very illegible. I can't say it. Illegible. Not legible handwriting. So I apologize to begin with. Okay? So good. We have 10 sfirot. Okay? But according to the world, the spiritual world that they're in, these different sfirot are configured in different ways. So the highest of these partsufim is called Arich Anpin, which means long face. Sounds like one of the Indian tribes. Long face. Okay? And then you have something called Abba. And then you have something called the Ima, right? You have dad, you got mom, you know, like any good nuclear family system, you got the dad and the mom, they're present, thank God, in this family. That's why things are working out over here. They even have the Saba, right? You guys like Saba? Yeah. So we got Saba here at the head of the whole thing, right? Very good, so that's definitely a good family. And then we have Zer Enpin. So very interesting here. It looks the most, in terms of the form of the name, like the highest, but he's the son. Small face. Long face, small face. Okay? And then we have the daughter. Her name is Nukva. Nukva literally means a receptacle. And like we spoke about before the class, spiritually, the energy of a female is to receive and then to produce and to create life, blessing, which is much greater than that it received to begin with. Similar to within union. A man gives over blessing, seed, but the seed is only in potential. She receives that seed, she cultivates it, she gives birth to it, and it becomes life. For that person, for everyone around it. This is the nukva, okay? Each of them is comprised of the 10 sfirot, but they interact differently. It's like, you know, there's like the cool guys in school, and then there were like the druggies, and then there was like the sports guys, you know, everyone has different clique. It's the same people, but they interact differently, right? Okay. Now, but within Arich Anpin, there is the highest part of Arich Anpin, which is the Keter of Arich Anpin. So in the 10 Sfirot, you have Keter, Chochmah, Bina, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Ho, Yesod, Malchut. The highest is called Keter. They call it the unknowable head because it's super conscious. Super conscious means it's above understanding. Very simply, it means it's above conscious apprehension. That's the Keter, and it's the crown, right? It's like, it's on top of your head. It's not in your head, okay? The Keter of Arich Anpin, so this is the highest in all the spiritual world, is called Atik. Atik Yomi. Length of days. Or they call it, like for the people who are like in the know, they just call it Atik. It's ancient. Okay? Ancient of days. Now, just the fact that we're going to speak about this right now, Rav Natan always marveled at the fact that whenever Rabbi Nachman talked about something, he would make sure that you knew that if he's talking about it, it's because he's experienced it. So just like take a quick note of that. Like when he talks about this thing, right, he was there. If he wasn't there, he wouldn't know to talk about it. So just take a moment, think about it. Pretty amazing, you know, like, okay. So he's going to talk about Atik right now. Now, when the Rashbi was in the cave with his son, Elazar, and he started to draw down the secrets of Kabbalah in the cave, you know, A lot of people, when they don't have any food and don't have anything to drink for 13 years, and then they have like the mayan, right? And they have the dates, right? So you can go two ways. If you're not so holy, you'll just lose your mind and go crazy. But if you're really connected to Hashem, you can experience tremendous hasagas, right? The secrets that he wanted to give the first time were all about Nukva, Zer Anpin, and Arch Anpin. So the highest and the lowest two. Right before he passed away, and Rabbi Nachman speaks about this, you want to pray to be by your Rebbe right before they pass away. Because the greatest hasaga they have in their whole life comes at the moment of their passing. I actually have a student who, and a friend, who told me that he grew up secular. His parents from Bukhara. His mom passed away when she was young from cancer, I believe. And before she passed away, she was in the hospital. And he was there right before she passed. And she called him to speak to him. And she told him a few things that was totally out of character and like not based on anything she ever said or even spoke about, or she didn't learn Torah or whatever. First thing she said is, I'm going to be at your wedding, which ended up happening a few years later. And he also said, the last thing that she said was, the Mashiach is here, and I never knew. And she passed away.
And I never what?
And I never knew.
Huh.
He's here right now, and I never knew. Right? Which is like, if you can imagine, like imagine your mom saying that, you know. So it's like, what are you talking Mashiach? I didn't even know you knew what Mashiach was, you know. Okay, why? And you'll see this a lot of times. People will say stuff right before they pass away that's like coming from some higher place. And if you're a tzaddik, really, 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 really high. Okay? So right before he passed away, he gathered his chassidim around and he told them about Abba and Ima. So this one that we're going to speak about now is dealing with this first revelation. When he went to give it, they were all gathered around him and he wasn't sure whether to say it or not. But when he saw that the angels came and the Shekhinah came, he felt like this was Haskama from Shemayim, that he needed to say it. Okay, so this is what he's bringing now in the Zohar. Patach Rabbi Shimon v'amar. Rabbi Shimon opened and he said, Eit lasot la'Hashem. It's a pasuk in Tehillim. It's a time to do for Hashem. Amai eit lasot la'Hashem. The Zohar Kadosh says, what does that mean? It's a time to do for Hashem. Isn't it always a time to do for Hashem? What does it mean it's time to do for Hashem? Mishum dehaferu tortecha. It's the second part of the pasuk. You need to read it and then you'll know why it's a time to do for Hashem. It's a time to do for Hashem because they have abrogated your Torah. Abrogated is a high English word which just simply means they have departed from your Torah. They're leaving it. They're forsaking it. Okay? Because they're forsaking it, so it's a time to do for Hashem. My hafera tortecha, what are they forsaking from your Torah? What is it talking about? Torah de'ela, we're talking about the secrets of Torah. What is it that's making this such a dangerous time right now that nobody's learning the secrets of Torah? And because of that, it's a time to do for Hashem. The ihi mitbatla, because it would be totally nullified, meaning we would never know the secrets of Kabbalah. Ilo yitavid b'tikune da, if not for the tikkun, the rectification that's about to take place right now. Atik yomin itmar, it refers to atik yomin. Ketib, because it's written in a pasuk, Ashrecha Yisrael, mi chamocha. Ashrecha, fortunate are the Jewish people, you, mi chamocha, who's like you? Right? You said that to yourself in the morning when you woke up, right? Nah, you're like, I'm a loser, what's wrong with me? Why do I suck? I can't do anything. But no, you should really get up and say, Ashrecha Yisrael, mi chamocha. It's in Hashem's tefillin, it's amazing. Who's like you? That's how Hashem thinks about us. That's how we think about us.
It's proof Hashem's a Breslover because he said
I heard once when I was in Oman, someone was reading a book, and I asked him what the book was about. Oh my gosh, he gave me this whole drasha about this book. But it was funny because there's one point. He told me that the book is trying to establish which is the God of the Torah. Is it the God that we normatively think of, or is it the Hasidic God? Which is not so far-fetched. I mean, like really, when you read the works of Hasidus and you read the normative works of Torah, you can come to like this weird friction of like, well, which one is he? Is he like the one who loves me and like is always thinking good about me and he never sees anything bad in me and he always wants the best for me? Or is he the one who's like, you know, locking and loading? I don't know which one he is. Yeah. So he said this book is dealing with this, trying to figure out which is the real one. Which is the... And I said no, and what are the... It's the Hasidic God. You know, it's very... So, okay. The Zohar is bringing the Hasidic God right now. Now, why is it bringing Ashrecha? Because in Kabbalah, all different types of song of Tehillim, whether it's Hallelujah, whether it's Ashrei, whether it's Tefillah LaDavid, all of the different 10 types of Tefillah are corresponding to a different sphere. The highest is corresponding to Keter, Atik Yomin, which is Ashrei. So that brings a whole new meaning to the Gemara, which says that if you say Ashrei 3 times a day, you have a chelik in Olam Haba. It's Ashrei, Keter. It's the crown. It's the crown. And if you look at the root of the word Ashrei, Asher, right? Gematria, Nachman, Ben Simcha. Also Gematria, Shimon Bar Yochai.
Nachman Bar Simcha.
Right, Bar Simcha. Thank you. Nachman Bar Simcha, Shimon Bar Yochai. Okay? So we put them together. Asher, the Rosh, Ashrei, Keter. We got a lot to be excited about with Rabbeinu. Okay? Now, Kara Rabbi Elazar Berei Otve Kameh. Called to Rabbi Elazar, his son. Otve Kameh. He seated him to his right. Rabbi Abba Misitra Achra. Not the Sitra Achra you're thinking of. You just literally put him to the other side. So he had Rabbi Elazar on the right, and he had Rabbi Abba on the left. Bamar, and he said, Anan Klala Dechola. We are the encompassment of everything in existence right now. Right? Your normal Torah class, you know, you go, it's like Torah anytime, your rabbi puts you in the front, and he goes, what are you going? You're waiting for him to speak, and he goes, we encompass all things. Why? Because there's me in the middle, and there's you on the right, and there's you on the left. And then his eyes start running. That's what it's like being by the Rashbi. And by Rabbi Nachman. Ad kan itkanu kayamin. The rectifications have in the meanwhile been affected. Ishtiku, they were silent, because obviously when you're hearing this, like, what are you going to say? Like, what's going on, bro? I don't know what's happening right now. We're all looking at each other. Don't know. Shamau kala, they heard a voice. V'arku daleda nakshan, and this voice gave them so much fright that their knees started buckling under the table. Remember what we were saying before in the class. My kala, what was the voice they heard? Kala dichnufya ila'a demit kanfe. It was the sound of the entourage from Shemayim gathering to hear the words of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Good. It would be good just to end there, right? We don't have to actually say. I don't know what just happened, but I feel good about life right now, right? It feels good. But then Rabbeinu comes in, boom! But you should know something. Sheyesh shvilei Torah, that there are pathways of Torah. Sheyesh behem hitbonanut gadol ma'od. Usually when people think of Rabbeinu, they think of hitbodedut. But here Rabbi Nachman speaks of hitbonanut. So for all the Chabadniks, here you go. It's here. Rabbeinu also likes it. We're going to have to see the context of how he likes it. But he's definitely talking about it in a big way right now. That you need a very great contemplation of a certain level of Torah to apprehend it. But here's the chiddush. It's impossible to come to this level of contemplation, of this level of Torah, if you're not wealthy, wow, people could just read this and like, what am I doing in the yeshiva all day? Why aren't Breslovers just like paving the, going 47th Street and just trying to make as much money as possible? No? I mean, Rabbeinu is pretty saying clearly, I have a cap. How much am I going to experience God? Depends how much money you got. Wow, this is like the Sephardi dream, no? You guys, diamonds, jewels, of course, Hashem wants me to be rich. That's the dream, no? But I'm pretty sure most Breslovers are poor. I'm pretty sure in Sichot Amar, Rabbi Nachman says that anybody who's truly religious is very unlikely to have a lot of money. So how is that going to work in with this whole thing? So we're going to have to see. Okay? But we're going to get to Pshat. Why? What's Pshat? Kamo Shabif Shatei Oraita. Im in Kemach in Torah. Everybody's heard this before. And I'm sure your friends and your teachers who are trying to get you to be practical and find a job will just tell you this. There's no Torah without Kemach. Kemach is wheat, it's bread, right? What's Pshat? What's the simple understanding of that? So Rashi says, because if you don't have food to eat, you won't be able to concentrate when you learn because you're hungry. It's pretty good, makes sense, no? You ever been really hungry and try to learn? It's hard. Okay. Rabbeinu Yonah says, actually, because if you don't have money, you won't be able to sit in the yeshiva. You're going to have to go out and try to make money so you can support yourself. So you won't be able to sit and learn. Very simple. Okay? Good. But then I realized that Kemach is also same gematria as Nachman. So it's before it sounds like a whole crazy Breslover, like everything's Nachman. But really it is. No Nachman, no Torah. You hear? So maybe this wealth that he's speaking about is him. Like Rabbi Nachman once said, I don't understand. Everyone's running after treasure. But the Torah says that the greatest treasure is Yirat Shamayim. And he said, I'm a storehouse of Yirat Shamayim. So why aren't people running after me? I'm treasure, baby. Come on, let's go. Okay, lo al kopanim parnasa. And at the very least, let's say you're not able to get to these highest levels of learning, which would require a very big bank account. But even if just to the most limited levels of learning, you still need a parnasa. Rabbi Nachman was not a big fan of people taking jobs that didn't have stable incomes. Right? Like when some of his students wanted to become malamids, to be teachers in schools, he would give them a lot of tochacha about this. He didn't want any of his chassidim taking jobs as teachers at schools, because it was then and some places now that they would constantly switch your wages depending on whatever every single year. And he said that that's not the way to connect to Hashem. You have to be able to have something stable in Parnasa, so you don't have to worry about your Parnasa, so you can just connect to Hashem. So when a person's trying to figure out what's the Shita of Breslov, what does Rabbeinu want from me when it comes to work? Rabbi Nachman wants you to find a job that you don't have to worry about your job. That doesn't mean that he wants you to go spend 20 hours a day working. It just means that he doesn't want you to come home and think to yourself, am I going to get paid for the 8 hours that I worked the 8 hours? He wants you to know, this is how much I worked, this is how much I'm going to get paid, and now I can go focus on what's important in life. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So now when I'm trying to figure out how to pray to Hashem, I'm asking for something stable. Something stable. Okay. But this type of contemplation, when we're talking about this highest revelation of Torah, which is so great, you need unbelievable amounts of wealth to get to this highest level of contemplation. You need great wealth. That you literally are lacking nothing. So all of a sudden, like everybody's antenna should be going off, because who has that? I mean, was Rabbeinu filthy rich that he never worried about anything? I mean, he probably didn't worry because of where he was holding in his emunah. So we have to understand, what does that mean? Like, who does this apply to? That you have so much money, you lack absolutely nothing in the world. So I was thinking to myself that the Gemara speaks about hon, wealth, and he says, don't read hon, read gavron, the throat. And it's speaking about the fact that when the Torah is speaking about losing your wealth, it's talking about losing your voice, which Rabbi Nachman explains in the third Torah of Likutey Moharan. It's referring to the Brit. That when a person is Pagama Brit, he loses his wealth, meaning his voice, which was the whole famous story of him calling out that Chazan because he couldn't speak, couldn't sing. He said, I'm sorry, I lost my voice. And then he said, you know why you lost your voice? Because you're hanging out with prostitutes. Then it got weird. Then he left.
Awkward.
Awkward.
And they caught him.
No, and then they caught him sleeping with somebody else's wife. Yeah. And then they realized, oh my gosh, when he quoted that pasuk in the beginning, and then it just made it like it wasn't. You know, it would be like Rabbi Nachman said this one time, like that would be it. No, like he just added to it, and then he like ended by saying, "I'll just have to give him a voice." It was like, what is that? Tikkun Brit. You know, not only I'm going to tell you why he doesn't have one, but that person needs to know if he ever wants to get it back. I'm the address. Yeah. Okay. And Rabbi Nachman says in many different places in Likutey Moharan that for a person to be able to always have exactly what he needs, it comes from the Brit. It comes from the Yesod. So in that case, maybe you could say, because in Kabbalah and the Eitz Chaim, the Arizal speaks about these 370 lights that come from a very high place, and that produces all the physical wealth that comes into this world. And it's connected to the Brit. Rabbi Nachman speaks about this like in veiled ways throughout Likutey Moharan. And he says, like in essence, like when Hashem's always giving you, it's always giving you what you're asking for. Because Hashem's infinite, and all he wants to do is give you. So what's the Chiddush of Rabbi Nachman saying? He's saying you're asking for Parnasa, he's already giving it to you. Okay, but it's not anywhere that I can find it, right? I'm asking for a Zivug, but I'm not married. So you can't tell me he gave it to me, she's not here, right? So there's two parts of a partnership. There's the one who's giving, and then there's the vessel of the person who's receiving it. So Rabbi Nachman explains that a person's level of mastery of the Brit is what creates his vessel. So the more that a person's holding in the Brit, the greater is his capacity to receive the things that Hashem's already giving him. So then it's really like, it's not a matter necessarily of trying to work harder to make more money, trying to work harder to speak to more shadchans, it's not that. It's that's the external. But on the internal, I have to ask myself, what steps can I make even beyond what I'm doing right now to be holding at a higher level in the Brit? Because if Hashem's already giving it to me, and this is the only thing that's stopping me, so this is the Panimi. And this is the whole ikar of Chassidus and Kabbalah, that the spiritual transforms the physical. When you are able to hold on to the spiritual, it will reflect itself through the physical world. You'll have it. That's why Rabbi Nachman says that if your wife doesn't listen to you, it's probably because you have Pagama Brit. And when you have Shmirat the Brit, and you're really holding in this place, your wife will assist you in whatever it is that you're doing. Okay? Ki tzarich kol hon la'alma. Rabbi Nachman goes even further. He goes, you know what? Really, you need all the wealth in the world. Lidbonanut hazot, to have contemplation like this. Uvnei Yisachar sha'er lehem zot ha'idbonanut. And to the tribe of Yisachar, they had this level of hidbonanut. Bivchinat, like it's brought. Ubibnei Yisachar yodei vina. That the tribe or the children of Yisachar, they knew Bina. And the Gemara ends up saying, what is this speaking about? They knew the constellations, right? There's one specific form of the study of the Torah which is reserved for very high-level individuals, which has to do with figuring out how to do the, what's the word that they use for it? Bringing together the year. So you're going from one year to the next year, but then there's always leap years, right? And because the Jewish calendar is very unique, that the sun, it's not a solar calendar, it's not a lunar calendar, it's really connected to both. So the year can't be the same every year. Oh, intercalation. That's what they call it. Intercalation. Okay? To be able to intercalate the calendar, only Yisachar could do that. They were the only ones capable of doing that. So why is that? Lo zachu lezeh ki im al yedei shiut. They merited this because of how wealthy they were. Because of how much money they had, they were capable of contemplating at such a deep level. I mean, obviously, on a very simple level, it's not hard to understand. When you're worried about how you're gonna pay your bills at the end of the week, you're not able to also simultaneously be present in your learning as much, right? As long as you know that you're lacking something that's really pressing, to that degree you're feeling that while you're learning, to that degree your contemplation becomes not as strong, right? Who's the one who's able to contemplate the deepest? The one who the whole world doesn't exist for him except for what's in front of him. So obviously on a very simple level, how do you make that happen? You have all the money in the world. All the wealth in the world, you can do that. Yisachar chamor garem. And that's why the Pasuk said that Yisachar was a strong-boned donkey. And Onkelos, who is the simple translation of it, he explains, what does it mean? Atir benichsin. He's abounding with possessions. But on the other hand, he wasn't the one who worked. It was Zvulun. Right? Zvulun was the one who was supporting him. So yes, he was bounding with possessions, but maybe he's not the one who's working for those possessions. So don't take this right away and start bashing on all the different, we have to go through the whole thing through to figure out exactly what he means before we start taking enough commands out for ourselves. But Yisachar was very, very wealthy, regardless if it was coming from him or it was coming from someone else. And because of that, he was able to just, like a donkey, which can hold a very heavy amount of weight, he was able to carry the Ol of Torah and just pound it. And to intercalate the calendar.
No, I have a few ideas. I was looking at something in Likutey where Rav Natan, he brings the pasuk. He says Chamor Garem. He says that like a person, we have the right, which is Torah, and the left, which is the money.
Right.
And Dafka, a person who is Torah, he'll draw the left side.
Right.
He'll draw the money.
Right.
So he says that Dafka Yitzhar, the left side, which comes as money, it challenges you with this representation of like you want to go after the money, bro, and like Dafka to do that, you get to a high level of Torah, because you have this temptation towards the physical,
right,
and then you beat that Yitzhar and you get to the
high level of Torah.
High level of Torah.
Yeah. It's a very complicated sugya because Rabbi Nachman's grandfather, Rav Nachman Hordenker, so he has a famous chiddush on the Gemara which says that on the right side you have Torah and you have long life, which is spiritual life, and on the left side you have wealth and honor. So I said, how could it be that Torah doesn't also contain wealth and honor, right? We know that in Kabbalah, everything that's on the left side is encompassed within the right. It's like the birth of it. So like Yitzchak came from Abraham. Wealth and honor came from Torah. Right. So how can you say it doesn't? Right? So the Gemara says, no, it's just saying that if you go to the left side, meaning you're looking for wealth and honor, you'll only get that. But if you go for Torah, you'll get both. That's the Gemara. However, Rav Nachman Hordenker, he says, but I see a lot of people who are learning Torah and they don't have a lot of wealth and honor. So how does that make sense? It says, because the Gemara says, because, yes, be'emet, it contains wealth and honor, ki'ilu, meaning it contains it in potential, but you're not actually going to taste it. But it's in there, right? And so this is his explanation of the whole thing, okay? So for this whole thing with like money and Torah, how does it all work together? It's a very complicated sugya. Someone came to Rav Natan and asked, I want to learn Torah full time. I don't want to work anymore. Not because I don't want to work, but because I really feel like this is my tafkid. Should I do it? And Rav Natan said to him, if you're able, like a worker at work, that he never takes breaks, and even when he does take his lunch break, he doesn't actually make a time for eating lunch, he just snacks while he continues doing his work. He says, if your learning is like that, meaning your physical needs you can just do it on the way because you're so subsumed within your Torah learning that you don't even have to take a time outside of it to take a break, make a phone call, smoke a cigarette. You could just on the way, and you're not even thinking about it. He said, then you can do it. And he said, if you're not like that, you have to get a job. So here we have another important point.
Sounds like most people.
Yeah, it's almost everybody.
Yeah.
And Rosenfeld was very pro
Getting a
getting
job.
work.
Yeah. It was because of this.
So you want to learn for a year after you get married, it's okay, but that's it.
Yeah, it was because of this. I mean, like the Gemara said, that the Rashbi said that Torah should be your occupation, and the Chachamim said, no, you should have an occupation, you should learn Torah.
Yeah.
And then they said that many people tried to do it the Rashbi's way, and they weren't able to. That was the outcome of the
Very few.
Very few.
Another minute.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to look at yourself honestly and say, can I do it? The truth is, you see from Rabbeinu's Torah that when you're able to learn, if you're able to learn at that level where you really do learn like that, whoever those people are, then you will see money will just come to you. It will literally like just funnel in. But if not, you won't see it happen like that, and then there's like a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Like Rav Yitzchak Bender, right? So he was once in learning, like after he became very close to Rabbeinu, and then he decided, even though he had a big family, he was just going to sit and learn all day in the Beit Midrash. So one day somebody came to him, worked in the marketplace, saw that Rav Bender was a big tzaddik, and felt for his family that they don't know how to get their bills paid, and Rav Bender is collecting all of his tzedakah to support his family when he could just work a little bit and also learn, and like they wouldn't be stressed and he wouldn't be stressed. And so he came in just to talk to him, like, hey, did you ever think about getting like a normal job so you don't have to have depend on people's donations to you? So Rav Bender says, what do you mean by a normal job? You mean like the marketplace? He said, yeah. He's like a job like you have? He said, yeah. He said, so what's your job? He said, I have a storefront. People come, and I try to show them the products that I have and bring them into my store, sell them the product that I hope they're going to be interested in through me, trying to persuade them. And then they take the product, and that's how I make my living. So he said, okay, did I ask you to give me money? Did I ask you to come inside and give me a donation? Did you ever hear me say to anybody, I need your money? He said, I'm not leaving here. People are just coming up to me and giving it to me. And your job, you're going out to people and asking them for their money. So the very thing that you're telling me I shouldn't be doing, that's actually what you're doing. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So, but that was Rav Bender. If you read stories about Rav Bender, it was different, right? But if you're not holding in that place, get a stable job. It doesn't have to be the way like America presents it, that your career should be something blooming and blossoming and focus on it all the time. And no, have a job. Obviously it would be good if you like your job, right? It's important to be happy. Try to make a job that makes sense for you.
Yeah.
But that it should be like this all-encompassing all the time, thinking about how to grow the business, and no, it's not what Rabbeinu was saying either. This means you have a stable
Just
job.
enough to live all the basics.
Yeah, what you need.
Yeah.
What you need. So now, he says, Va'al ken Moshe v'chol nevi'im haya lehem ashiyut gedol ma'od. And this is why Moshe and all of the Nevi'im had a tremendous amount of wealth. Kedei levo al yedei hitbonenut hazot. It was in order that they should be able to have this highest level of contemplation. U'michamet sheyesh b'haTorah hitbonenut hazot al ken nikret haTorah hon. And since Torah involves this level of contemplation, the Torah itself is therefore called wealth. So Rabbi Nachman is really trying to link together someone's level of wealth and their level of Torah, and he's saying this is the secret of Ein Kemech Ein Torah, meaning they're totally coinciding. if I need to contemplate Torah at this level, I need this much wealth to do it. If I need that much, I need that much wealth to do it. And if I need the most, I'm going to need the most wealth in the world. Okay? Now, it's taught in Kabbalah that right now in the exile for the 6,000 years we're here, the Torah that we learn is coming from Zera Anpin. It's the revelation of Zera Anpin. However, when Mashiach comes, that's the Torah of Arich Anpin, or Atik Yomin. Okay? Now we know from all the Nevi'im, when they speak about the days of Mashiach, they speak about how everyone is going to have so much wealth. And at the same time, we also know that Mashiach is going to spread the Das around the world like water covers the sea. There's a very high level of God consciousness. So now Rabbi Nachman is trying to explain to us, it's not that it happens to be this and it happens to be this. It's for that level of Das, we're going to need that much wealth. And that's why in the Beit HaMikdash, all the Jews were wealthy at that time of Shlomo Melech. Because that was the greatest Das that was ever revealed besides Matan Torah. Right? So we need it for some reason, which hopefully we're going to find out throughout this lesson.
They were also rich by Matan Torah, right?
Yeah.
After leaving the sun, they got all the gold.
Same is true to whose the Torah was transmitted. They all had a lot of wealth. Meaning, Moshe Rabbeinu she'avia Torah l'Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu gave the Torah to the Jewish people. Hayashir Gadol Kamo. And Moshe Rabbeinu was very wealthy, like Chazal taught. Shamru Rabbeinu Zichunan L'Racha Vechen Rebbe Shesider Vechatam Mishnayot, and also Rebbe, right? Rabbeinu Yehuda, right, who compiled the Mishnah, sealed the Mishnah. He was also very wealthy. V'chen Rav Ashi, and also Rav Ashi, Shayach Timat Talmud, that he was the one who compiled the Gemara. He was also very wealthy. V'sider et kol Talmud. Why? Shagam ken ayu ashirim gadolim ma'od kamo shamru Rabbeinu Zichunan L'Racha, like it's brought in Gittin and Bava Metzia. Ki mechamach tiknu v'sidru et kol Torah sheba'al peh. Because they established and arranged the entire oral law, and through them the Torah is passed on. Vavar derech yadam Torah. Al ken haya gam ken ashiyut. So they needed that wealth. Ki tzarich ashiyut gadol litbonanut. Because for contemplation, you need wealth. Contemplation, you need wealth. V'zevachina pasalacha. And this is the concept of carve for yourself. When Hashem told Moshe to carve for himself tablets, v'darshu Rabbeinu Zichron L'Racha, and it says in Yerushalmi Shkalim and in Adarim Lamed Chet, hapasol iyu shelcha. The shavings shall be yours. Meaning, when it's speaking about the pasolet, which usually means excess, here it's referring to the wealth that's going to come from the Torah. Meaning, Hashem was telling Moshe, from his bringing down the Torah at Matan Torah, take the shavings to yourself from the Torah. Meaning that through your very high level of knowledge of the oral Torah, you're going to draw with it a lot of wealth. And Rabbi Nachman says elsewhere that a way to draw a lot of wealth is to become baki in poskim of halacha. Because in Kabbalah, wealth is coming from the wife, right? And in the Tikkun Zohar, they say that nukva is Torah sheba'al peh. The oral Torah. So these two things are interconnected. And that's why you see, actually, that the greatest poskim who have lived also had a lot of means. They didn't start with a lot of means, but by the time that they became at that level, they had a lot of means. Because Rabbi Nachman is explaining that through that intense understanding of the oral Torah, it brings wealth, which is why Moshe had that wealth when he brought down that new Torah. Okay? And with regard to these explanations, Shabif Shatei Torah, Kodem Shemechad Eza Pshat, one must first provide an introductory information. Tarich Lamomi Kodem Akdamot, Achar Kach Mashlichin Akdamot, Uvaim El Mechuvan. Right? Rabbi Nachman spoke about this in multiple places in Torah Lamed as well. He speaks about how that before you can understand anything in the Torah, you need introductions first. But ultimately, what are the introductions there to do? To get you to the point. Once you get to the point, what happens to those introductions? They melt away. So they're like this temporary mechanism for bringing you into the point, but then they leave once you get there. I think of it like in space, right? When you're going from planet to planet, there's like an orbit around the planet. So you get in like a ship, and what do you want to do? You want to get into the orbit. Once you get into the orbit, then you'll find yourself in the planet. But if you can't get in the orbit, you're never going to get into the planet. So like you have a ship, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you have like a temporary ship that's strong enough to get you to the orbit, but once it's there, it like disintegrates. But now you're in orbit, you'll get to the planet. So here, like as well, introductions are like that temporary ship. You have introductions, which sound very important, they sound very vital, and they are in the sense that they bring you to the essence. But then once you get there, it's just falls away.
It's like logic and Emunah. Like you have to build off logic, and you're going around with logic, and then boom, something you get like a revelation that you can't describe through logic. It's
Right.
Like, it's Emunah. It's this place of Emunah.
Beautiful, exactly, B'diuk. And now Rabbi Nachman's saying, now those introductions, what is that like? They're like shavings. Right? Those hakdamot, they're like shavings. They don't really offer you anything, but they're there to help you get to the point. So that's where the wealth comes from. The wealth comes from those hakdamot, from those introductions. Why? Because Rabbi Nachman again says in that Torah Lamed that a hakdam is the concept of malchut. And the way I always think about it is it's the thing that brings you into orbit. Right? Rabbi Nachman says that there's this big light. You need that light. That's what you need. But to get to that light, you need an introduction. Or you need a story. Or you need a mashal. Right? And that's what brings you in. So he's saying that's also the source of wealth. It's the shavings of the essence. That's where money comes from. Because at its source, it's not money, it's shefa. Okay. Ki ha'ikar hu ha'mechuvan. Because the essence is what you intended when you gave the lesson. V'chol dvarim ha'akdamot shemikodem. And all of these introductions that are given beforehand, hem bechina pasolet, they're the concept of pasolet, meaning that they're excess. They're shavings. Shenin sarin, v'niv salin, zaviv mechuvan. Right? They have been chiseled and carved away from the intended insight. Kamo ken itbonanu Torah. So too, when it comes to contemplation of the Torah, it's a richle lech mikodem. You need to first go around. Usabeb bechama sibuvim. You need to first go around and around a number of times. Ad sheba'im al mechuvan. Like you need to go in orbit around multiple times before you can get sucked into the planet, the place that you intend to go. Ve'ikar hu mechuvan. And the essence is the intended insight. V'cho elu asibuvim. And all of this circling is the aspect of pasolet. V'chem bechinat ashur, which is the concept of wealth. She'al yudo ba'im el itbonanut, by means of which one attains contemplation. V'zeh bechinat pasalacha. This is the concept of pasal for yourself. Meaning what? But pasolet she'eshacha. The pasolet, the shaving, should be for you. Misham nita sher Moshe. This is when Moshe became wealthy. So it wasn't that Moshe was wealthy his whole life. It was at this point that he's bringing down the Torah, and he had all of these contemplations of Torah for those 40 days and nights. The excess of those contemplations, from him getting to the point, whatever was left over that got him there, that became all of his money. That became all of his wealth.
It's almost like what Rabbeinu says, like, it's not the same thing about tshuva. It's kind of like what I'm learning in Torah Vav. Okay. It says tshuva al tshuva, and it says the first tshuva becomes gashmi.
Right.
Why? Because you have a higher perception of Hashem.
Right.
So it's like almost like now you get to this perception of Hashem, and then now that you're getting to the essence of that thing, which is like the higher level. Now the lower level becomes gashmi, becomes ashirut. It's not wealth.
B'diuk. Literally. Exactly. Right? We just said, Chazal said, that wealth is in the Torah.
Yeah.
When you get it. When you're done with it. It's the part that devolved and descended to the lowest place, the place that's not necessary anymore. But you had to first get to that highest place through those lowest places, and then it becomes wealth for you. So you really need to toil, right? We're learning from this. To get wealth through learning Torah, you really need to, and that's what Rav Natan was telling him. If you can learn and mamish just have your head in it so much that even when it comes to eating, you're just, the watermelon's going in, but you're not taking an hour to go get lunch somewhere and bringing it back, and you're figuring out what's your favorite restaurant, where you're going to do it, which is fine. But that you can't live like that and also say, I'm going to learn all day.
Because there's no psal.
Right. Because you won't be able to make money then.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what Hashem wants. It doesn't want you not to be able to support yourself.
Right.
So how do you do it? You have to really mamish be pounding away at it. And then you'll make the pasolet. It's funny because like we think about excess and we want to get rid of it. And Rabbi Nachman actually brings that sadness comes from excess. But here we have like holy excess.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All of my like trying to figure it out, that all just becomes ding. It's a whole different way of thinking about it. It's like I'm sitting in the Gemara and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't understand anything I'm reading, and I'm trying again and I'm trying again. Like, this is such a waste of time. But like, really, that's money in your bank account.
So what? So the introduction is the excess?
The introduction becomes the excess only when you get to the point. That's what he's saying.
Because then you don't need it anymore.
Because you don't need it anymore. But once you, as long as you're still fuddling along with it, you still need it, and it's not excess for you.
Mm.
So once you get to that internal panimi point, then that introduction became Gashmi, and it just falls away. Where does it fall away? Check your back.
Do you think this has? This has to do with like Gemara B'iyun maybe?
Yeah, has to do with also Rabbeinu said that you should learn Shulchan Aruch B'iyun.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And
Why, to learn both?
so Rabbeinu doesn't speak as much about learning Gemara B'iyun. He speaks more about learning it B'kiyut, and most things he's talking about learning B'kiyut. The one thing that he says explicitly you should learn, two things he says you should learn B'iyun are Shulchan Aruch, with all the commentaries and the Likutey. Yeah. Why Shulchan Aruch? Because I explained there that it's the Psak Halacha, that's the point. Meaning, you have a Mishnah, right? And then the Mishnah, it brings you to the Gemara. And the Gemara, but you don't know what to do with it until you get to Psak. So really, there's nothing more essential than Psak Halacha. So if you're toiling to understand the Psak and how you got to the Psak, then you have a lot of shavings that come from that. A lot of shavings to work with. But when you're doing it with the Gemara itself, the point you got to, you might just understand the sugya, but you don't actually know what to do with it.
Oh, so it's less like
Pointish.
right.
Yeah.
B'kiyut.
Yeah. So he says by Gemara is cute. Is the way to go.
Mm.
And a little time after
Yeah. You should have a little. It's good for your brain. It's good for you, and you can also feel it. Like if you just, it's like a really unpleasant feeling sometimes to like try and think really hard in Torah. But once you're done doing it, you see that other things in your life make more sense, which is a really weird phenomenon. But
Well, I shouldn't even feel like fills in gaps of other places.
yeah. Even if a person has a conversation with you, like if before this they're like asking you a question about math, you're like, I don't know. But if you just like really cracked your head on something in the Torah, and maybe you didn't even get it, but then like someone came to you and said that same question, like you'd probably be like, oh yeah, you just do like this and like this and like that. It really like makes your mind beseder. Hence, yeah, go ahead.
But now we're saying the opposite. We're saying because you're learning so much Torah, you're getting so much Hashirut.
Right.
But we saying in the beginning, he says,
Right, so this is the whole thing. We have to understand how are we dealing with this question of Breslovers don't have a lot of money, and Rabbi Nachman says that desire for wealth is avodah zara. So
It's like contradiction.
yeah. So what is it?
Right.
So we see that it's the greater of a tzaddik that you become,
Right.
the greater of the intensity and the fervor with which you learn. That's actually producing the wealth.
But it doesn't sound like that in the way he's saying in the beginning. The beginning says, the only way you can get to a high level understanding of Torah is by having wealth. But right now we're saying the more you learn Torah and get to the pnimi of the Torah, then the wealth comes from the psot of that.
Right.
It's the opposite order though.
No. the way it sounds like from the beginning is you need the money in order to learn, because that's Pshat in
Right.
Rashi and Rabbeinu Yonah, and he's saying
I hear.
no.
Oh, it's like
He's bringing there
got
because
it.
he's bringing what the examples that are brought in the Gemara. But
Right.
Moshe Rabbeinu had a lot of money.
Right.
Okay, but Rabbi Nachman said, but when did he get a lot of money? Through the Torah. It was through his carving of the Torah for those 40 days and 40 nights that he was toiling in Torah Shalpesh or Biktav. That at the point when he got the point, meaning he's bringing down those tablets, so then Hashem says, you see all that excess that you have from like you don't need it anymore? Ding, 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 ding.
Got
That's money.
Yeah. So you started off with with understanding of, like how you would understand,
Right.
and then he's getting to the point, twisting it.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah. He says that's why the letters of Mammon, Rosh Tevot Misham Nitasher Moshe. It's an acronym for the saying of our teachers. From there, Moshe became wealthy. That is the word Mammon. So however Moshe became wealthy, we can learn that this is the way we become wealthy. Va'avav hu bechina taluchot. And the Vav is the concept of the luchot. Why? Because the Gemara says that they were 6 by 6. Right? So the luach, 6 by 6. Actually related to the concept of Zer Enpin, which is the concept of 6 as well. It's the Vav. That's the Torah. It's supposed to do with the Brit. Okay. So we have a 6, right? The Vav is the aspects of the tablets from which Moshe became wealthy. Because the tablets were 6 by 6, as taught by Chazal. And this connects well with what we said before. That what is the concept of wealth? Hon. It's garon. And in Kabbalah, the health of one's throat is very much predicated on the quality of their brit. Which is why Rabbi Nachman was saying that if you lost your voice, and that's also why the Gemara speaks about people who are stuttering and stammering, having had a Zera Levatella like the night before.
Didn't Moshe stutter?
What are you trying to say?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
Excuse me.
No, so yeah, he stuttered until he got the Torah.
Oh, cause
And then once he got the Torah, meaning the Brit, because what's the gematria of Brit? 612. It's gematria of Torah, 611. So if you take Torah plus the word itself, the kola, it's Brit. So Torah is the Brit. So when a person's holding in the Brit, he has the Torah, right? And he has Parnasim, he has wealth. That's what's saying. What time is it?
10:30.
Can we do a little bit more?
Sure.
You tell me. Can you do a half an hour more?
Yeah.
I live here, so
Yeah. How about you? We have to get back, but you have 30 minutes or no?
I can do a little more.
A
Yeah.
little more?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I want to do this Torah by Rosh Hashanah. That's
Ben
the
is saying also yes.
Yeah, Ben is saying yes. Who's
Yeah.
that? Ben Roberts? Oh, he's probably loving this. Okay, Yofi. V'lavola shiur tazot. How do you get to this wealth? Hu al yedei bechina tikuni atik. Oh, you just need the tikkunim of a tik yomin. All you need is the spiritual rectifications that have to do with the highest spiritual madrega known to man, the ones in which only will be revealed by Mashiach Sikeno himself, and the ones which Rabbi Nachman hinted to many times that he himself had been holding in, which is probably why he said there's no difference between me and Mashiach except that everyone's going to listen to him. Meaning, I was saying in the last class that I did in Sipori Masiot, you guys get a chance to watch it. Hashem, it's really... So I was explaining something that I heard once from Rav Levish, and Rav Levish was saying in the name of a very prominent Breslov chassid that what is Rabbeinu? Rabbeinu is like the shop before the bar. So like we're trying to get to Olam Haba. It's like the bar. And it's got unbelievable liquor there. It's like high quality. And, what would I want to do right now? Man, I would love to just go with my friends and just hang out and relax and have a drink and just chill out and like enjoy, right? But a lot of times we have too much anxiety to get to the bar. So what do? In America, call it pregame. But there's a chokhmah behind it, meaning it's a really weird thing. For me to get to the bar, which contains all of this liquor, I have to take a shot of the liquor that's at the bar. That's the only way I'm going to get there.
Sometimes you don't make it there because.
Okay, sometimes you don't make it there. Meaning to say that Rabbi Nachman, his liquor, like he said, his Hungarian wine, is the wine of Mashiach. Why do we need it? Why can't we just wait for Mashiach? Because you need a shot before you can get to the bar. Because you can't deal with this life otherwise. It's the challenges and the trials and the suffering and the hardships and the stress. It's too much right now before the coming of Mashiach that it's impossible to get there. I mean, why are Americans drinking so much to get to the bar? They weren't doing that in the 70s. They just went to the bar because they weren't as stressed then. And now that they're more stressed, they need it now. So we're in Ikvetet de Mashiach. We're confounded with this unbelievable stress. So on the one hand, we're on the precipice of Mashiach. And on the other hand, we can't even get there because we're too stressed.
We're like trapped.
We're trapped.
Yeah. And also, even if like Mashiach does come, if we didn't get a taste of him, we won't recognize him.
That's what your friend's mother was saying. That he's here already, but we just don't feel it.
Right.
Because we don't know.
We don't have it.
We have this idea of what Mashiach is, but we don't actually know what he is. We never tasted it.
Right.
So like, how are we going to recognize it?
Oh, that's what Rabbi Nachman said, that when Mashiach comes, everyone's going to be in a big tumult, except for my students.
Because we tasted the wine.
Because he said that they've been drinking that for a long time. Old news! Old news. If you had to have a list, just like, forget about Judaism, religion. Who said more cool things than Rabbi Nachman? Like, he has there's no, just like, just cracked you over the head like a million times. Like, who says stuff like this? And it's just over and over.
And every time, it's not like he says a bunch of stuff. Like every time you say, you open the Sefer and you say that, you read it again. Like he actually said that.
Yeah.
And, like every time it's like a shock. It's not like he says it and he's a bunch of things that are shocking. Like every time I see no,
it's equally shocking every time.
And it's equally shocking every time.
Yeah. He said that about himself. He also said that about himself. He said that. If you
really?
Yeah, he said you simply mention my name and you'll become like a newborn babe. I mean, like, that's why also, like, when you read his teachings, you go to that, you can read Torah Vav 1,000,000 times and every time it's going to be totally different. It's like it transports you to like a new place. Just like, it's new. Rabbi Nachman's whole thing is, I'm new.
Yeah.
Every time they saw him, he was new. His Torah is always new. His whole thing is Chiddush. He is a Chiddush. Such a Chiddush that every time you read what he says, even if you read it over and over again, it's going to be as big of a Chiddush each time. It's Chiddush. I remember once one of my students from Queens, he came up to me and he was really into Breslov at this point. I got him all yoked up, he's doing Boda do it every day for an hour in the field. He's getting up really early to pray now. And he came to me like once we were davening, and we didn't usually daven in the same place. We davened, and then he came up to me right after it was over. He goes, David, tell me a Chiddush. I want to know a Chiddush. Just tell me something right now. He was excited, which is awesome. I said, I'm going to tell you the biggest Chiddush in the world. But you have to listen really carefully what I'm saying. The biggest Chiddush is Rabbi Nachman. And I'm not just like trying to overwhelm you with Breslov inundation. I'm living this, and I'm telling you, he's a Chiddush. Like, he's a Chiddush that like has never been. He is such a Chiddush. Like, when you think about a Chiddush, it's like, wow, like when a teacher says something or a rabbi says something, you learn something. Like, oh my gosh, that's a Chiddush. Like, he is that. That's his whole being. He is a Chiddush. There's nobody like him. Nobody ever, even Reb Natan wrote in, I don't know if it was Moharan or it was, he made more notes, but like somewhere in the middle of the book, just out of nowhere, he goes, there's nobody in the world like Rabbi Nachman. And when Reb Natan said something, he wasn't like trying to show how great his Rebbe was. He was a very simple person, Reb Natan. Like whatever he said, he meant that. If he said that there was nobody in the world like Rabbi Nachman, he literally just meant there's nobody in the world like Rabbi Nachman.
There's no exaggeration.
Yeah, there's no exaggeration. He didn't exaggerate anything. Like he was very like he was very unhappy with when people would exaggerate. It was like a disdain for him.
Yeah.
Even when he said like if the road to Uman was paved with knives, I would crawl on my hands and feet to get to Uman for Rosh Hashanah to be by Rabbeinu. He meant that. That's what he meant. He meant it literally. He wasn't trying to mechazik you to get to Uman. He was saying like, I thought it out. This is what I'm willing to do.
He doesn't have to exaggerate.
No. He doesn't have to, and also it wasn't his. He was so simple. Like Rabbi Nachman spoke about Rav Natan, and he would speak to his daughter about Rav Natan, and he would marvel to his daughter about Rav Natan that this is the simplest person like you'll ever see. He goes, this person could look at a building, and he could tell you the entire infrastructure and the measurements of that building just by looking at it for a second, and he has no idea that that's even something because he's so simple. Like that was Rav Natan. He was just like Pasha. You know, he didn't dress like you wouldn't even know by looking at him. He was like a chassid. He was just like in very simple garb. You know, I went to the mikveh and they said to him like, "Wow, your rabbi's Rabbi Nachman. Like, tell me your kavanas." You know, you look at the Baal Shem Tov even he's talking about all these different kavanas in the mikveh. The Arizal, you know. Now Rabbi Nachman, everything we heard about him, he's there, like he's in that place.
Yeah.
What do you think about when you go in the mikveh? Rav Natan said, what do I think about when I go in the mikveh? I think about when I'm going to get out. That's what I think about. I think about when I'm going to leave. That's all he thought about. I was like, my rabbi didn't tell me kavanah. My kavanah is go do another mitzvah. Like, I'm going into the mikveh so I could be yotzed jumping in the mikveh because that's how it works. And then I want to think about what's the next thing I'm going to do. It was just pasha. It was simple. You want to say something? Okay. So how do you get to this wealth? You need atik yomin. You need kemach. You need nachmen. See, it's all coming together. Bechinat arichut yamin, the concept of length of days. Bechinat zaken. This is the concept of the elder. Ki tzarich arichut yamin, because a person needs length of days kedei lekab b'tocho et ha'ashirut shel hitbonenut. In order to get this unbelievable amount of wealth, Rabbi Nachman says, so you want to know why you haven't seen it? Because you need tremendously long days before you can get wealth from Torah. What does it mean you need tremendously long days? It means that you're taking your day and you're lengthening it out. How do you lengthen out your day? YOLO. What does that mean?
Wait, YOLO?
Yeah.
You only live once.
You only live once. So if you only lived once and you had one day, I have one day today. This is all I have. What would I do today? Based on what you know now. Not based on what you knew 10 years ago. I don't want to know what you would have done today. Based on what you know now. You have one day to live. What would you do that day? What time would you get up? 12 p.m.? 1?
I would wake up.
I wouldn't go to sleep. I just stay up the whole time.
You'd stay up.
Yeah.
You'd stay up. And what would you do?
Tikun Chatzos,
What else?
Shachris.
Shachris. Probably play Nates now.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. You learn a little bit maybe?
Yeah.
Definitely get a lot of learning.
Definitely get a lot of learning in.
Get a lot of learning, but I would say more about it.
A lot of do.
Yeah.
Be learning. How much time, if you knew you had one day to live, would you spend eating?
Try to avoid it. Like
Waste of time.
Okay, good. Yeah, what else? How about the sports highlights?
No. That I already don't care about.
Yeah. Oh, okay, good. Okay,
Yeah.
but I'm saying, like, if you think you have more time, so then it's not as pressing, and it is important. It's very important to know what are the standings, what are the fantasy sports scores. Very chashuv. But if I think I only have one day to live, I don't care. Okay. Somebody asked Rabbi Nachman, how do you do so much every day? Listen to what Rabbi Nachman said. It was unbelievable. He said, do you think that I can think about that question? Because if I thought about that question, I wouldn't get up tomorrow morning. He said, if I knew that tomorrow I'm going to have to carry the burden that I carried today by doing as much as I did today, I wouldn't be able to get up. He said, the only reason I'm able to do this every day is because I only think I have today.
Yeah.
And he said, you'd be amazed how much you can carry if you live like that. But if you think to yourself, man, if I do this, and I'm going to have to do this tomorrow, and then the next day, and then the next day, it's not normal. I got to relax, chill out. So what's the key? Rabbi Nachman says, Hayom.
Yeah.
Hayom. If you have the zchut to wake up tomorrow, Hayom. Hayom. Right? Remember one time Rav Natan, when his wife was getting upset with him because when he met Rabbi Nachman, he started working much less. And he started learning and praying a lot. And his wife, didn't marry that person. She married Talmid Chacham, right? Someone who was really learning Torah. Her dad was a huge Talmid Chacham. Rabbi Nachman himself said that about him. There was a tzaddik. So, but she didn't intend on being the sole provider of the family. That's not who she got married. All of a sudden, every time Rabbi Natan comes back from Rabbi Nachman, he's in the woods more, and he's in the office less. So she's starting to get unnerved, and at some point, is really contemplating a divorce. And obviously, Rav Natan is a nice person. He's not an irresponsible person. He obviously didn't like those conversations. They weren't comfortable for him because he doesn't know what to do. His wife's like, "Why aren't you working much more?" And he's coming back from these lessons, and he's like, "How can I possibly, what? How can I do it? How can I look myself in the mirror?" They came to Rabbi Nachman, and he said, "Rabbi, I'm struggling. When I heard your last lesson, I decided it doesn't make sense for me to work 10 hours a day. And then he goes, Rabbi Nachman said, so how much do you work now? He goes, I work I reduced it to 8 hours a day. And Rabbi Nachman said to him, what about Olam Haba? So what do you think Rav Natan did?
Just another.
He reduced it, and now he's
6
working
hours.
6 hours a day, and his wife's literally losing her mind, and he's so his insides are turning, and then he goes back crying to Rabbi Nachman, my wife is really unhappy, we're really struggling, she doesn't want to be working in the store, and but I just can't, how can I, so Rabbi Nachman said, well, how much do you work? He said, I'm working, I reduced it to 6 hours. He said, what about Olam Haba? Anyway, this kept happening until he stopped working. But, it's interesting because amazing Hashgacha Pratit, Rav Natan's wife actually eventually got to the point where she's like, I need a divorce. I can't do this. This is not what I signed up for. And she spoke to her dad about it because she really revered her dad to get his opinion. And he was obviously not happy with what was going on, that he was getting involved with Chassidus, and now she's complaining about him ever since she never. So then he just said to her, is he learning less since he met Rabbi Nachman? And she said, no, he learns much more. So then he said, then you can't leave him. As long as he's learning like that, then you have the greatest merit in the world by being with him and helping him and supporting him. So she stayed with him. And in the end, she admitted that she was wrong, and so did the father-in-law, and everyone said that they were sorry to him. But to get to that point, and we can take a lot of chizuk from this for ourselves. I'm not talking about the work thing. I'm just talking about, when you want.
We're already doing great in there.
Yeah.
0.
Just the whole Rebbeinu thing, you're gonna get, you have to get so much flack, and it's not, Rabbi Nachman makes it very clear, it's not a coincidence, and not just poor you, it happens to be you. You have to have everybody around you telling you, it's not normal, it doesn't make sense, it's a part of this whole process.
Yeah.
So, for us to take a lot of chizuk from that fact, and know that the emet only comes out at the end. This is what Rabbi Nachman brings in the 12th Torah Likutey. That the tzaddik emet and everyone who's connected to him is the concept of Yaakov. Why is the name Yaakov? From the parsha Ekev, right? Root of the name is Ekev. What's Ekev? Ekev means the heel. What's the heel? So the simple understanding is that Yaakov comes at the end and holds on to Esau's heel. However, Rabbi Nachman says that this is the difference between the tzaddik emet and everyone else. Everyone else is getting theirs now. But the tzaddik emet, his schar is in the end. Why? Because he's the truth. And the nature of emet is it spans the beginning, middle, and end. So you need to have the full revelation of time before the truth can be revealed, before the tzaddik can be revealed. So as long as you're makusher to the tzaddik, when are you going to finally get nachat from everybody around you about what you're doing? When's everyone's going to give you the nice slap on the butt and say, wow, I'm really proud of you, attaboy. Unbelievable. Only at the end. And it's not because there's anything wrong with the path, it's because it's the truth.
Enough because, Rabbeinu says that just like there can't be any gerim in the end of the days from Mashiach, so too the tzaddik emet. The tzaddik emet can't be attractive right now.
Right.
Because if he's attractive, no one's going to come to me because they want to serve Hashem.
Right.
And they want truth. Because this is the greatest honor, this is the greatest thing to do.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why Rav Natan said that the beauty of a Breslov will only be known after Mashiach comes. Okay, so we need Atik Yomi. And very simply, and then we'll take a break, and then Hashem will continue next week. Varichut Yamim, what is this length of days? Hainush tzarich shiyir la'arich u'agdil yamav. He needs to attempt to extend and increase his days. Ki kol yom v'yom mimakom shmatchil etzel kol echad. Because when a person begins his days, bavadei batchila hi katzar. The beginning feels really narrow, right? You wake up and what are you thinking? Oh gosh, I have to go to work, and I have my whole learning seder, and I have to go find my marriage partner, and I have to go speak to my parents, and I have to do this unnecessary errand, and I have all these things that are holding me on my head. So what does the beginning of a day feel like? It feels very narrow. Katzar. What happens? The beginning of his day is very difficult. Why? Because the avodah shetzarich lasot oto bayom. For example, he needs to pray, he needs to learn similarly. Therefore, the day begins narrow because he needs to begin slowly. Because you can't do all these things at one time. You have to do it slowly. So, but when you're contemplating all those slowies that you have to do in that day, it's a lot. And that's what makes the beginning very narrow. However, a person needs to see to it that he develops and he expands and he lengthens every hour that comes afterwards. To grow and to develop and to expand. But Tosfot Kedusha, you're adding holiness. That's what he's saying. Each hour of the day, you want to be looking to add more Kedusha to your day. So you have to ask yourself, because we want the Maaseh. Rabbi Nachman wants you to come to Maaseh. Yes, you'll come to the class and you'll feel like you get transported to another world. You don't want to come back down. We've all been there. I'm here right now. Okay? Aval, Rabbi Nachman says, but don't miss the point. What's the point? Very simple. Every hour of your day, ask yourself, how can I add more Kedusha to this hour? Whatever that would be. And go do that thing. And if you do that, you lengthen that hour. Because Kedusha, godliness, is above time. So the more Kedusha that I add in my day, the more I'm expanding my day because it doesn't fit within the constraints of time. If I'm trying to do physical things, right, my day will shorten.
Yeah.
But if I add Kedusha, my day will lengthen. And that's why you see these great tzaddikim, and you wonder, like, how can you possibly do so much? And a lot of them passed away in their 30s. Like, you wouldn't believe how many passed away in their 30s and their 40s, and what they did in that time. How did they do that? Because Kedusha is not within the constraints of time and space. And the more Kedusha that you add, the more that you increase the length. Now, what Rabbi Nachman is going to come out saying with this is the whole concept of Rosh Hashanah, with the shofar blast. Because you have a shofar, it's very narrow in the beginning. You start to blow into it, and that's the Kedusha. And you see that the shofar then starts to expand out, to grow and grow and grow and grow. Right? Rabbi Nachman's going to explain later. It brings yira, right? This higher level of consciousness, this awe of Hashem, that's like this deep reverence and this desire not to want to disconnect from Him because you understand the beauty and the greatness of feeling close to Him. It's a tremendous awe. All the great tzaddikim had this awe. It was not, I have anxiety. It was like, this is such an awesome thing. Why would I ever leave this? Right? So where does that come from? That comes from the shofar blast. Now, we're learning that what is it that leads to that level of awe? How do I get to that level of awe? The Gemara says that for Moshe, awe is not a big thing. It was very small. But it's mashma in that for all of us, it's very big and it's very hard to get to. Right? So how do I ever get there? Rabbi Nachman's telling you. Adding Kedusha to each hour of your day. Whatever you can do throughout the day to add Kedusha, that is like you're creating a shofar. And ultimately, if you create a whole shofar, then through your blowing through it throughout the day, you'll draw yira from that. And Rabbi Nachman's going to explain that yira is the source of this wealth. And yira is the source of you eventually getting to the point that you lack nothing, because the Pasuk says, a person who has yirat shamayim, he has yirat Hashem, he lacks nothing. Lo yachsar, he doesn't lack anything, right? So now we're learning what is that wealth. Like we said, Rabbeinu said, I am a storehouse of yirat shamayim. Why aren't people running after me? Because this is real treasure. When you have this thing called awe of Hashem, you lack nothing, right? It's like on Shabbos. You have the same problems you had the whole week. You're still not married. You still don't have health. You still don't have parnasa. You still don't have this. But on Shabbos, I don't care. Why don't I care? Because on Shabbos you have a neshama yetera. You have an extra soul. What happens when you have that extra soul? You have awe. You can feel Hashem. You can feel, like I know sometimes, like I'm sitting in my room and I hear the air conditioner. Like during the week, I don't think anything of it. But on Shabbos, I'm looking at the air conditioner. I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing can't do anything on its own. Hashem is literally pumping power into it and saying, blow, 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 blow. If it stopped for one moment, the air conditioner wouldn't be doing this. And I'm realizing Hashem is propelling the air conditioner in my room. And the lights are on because Hashem is keeping that light on. And then I'm thinking about the table and how in science they show how really this looks solid, but it's all these moving particles. And the particles are moving in such a way that if they moved in another way, there would be an explosion. They literally say there would be an explosion. Like Hashem is, everything seems like nothing's moving and everything's moving and Hashem's doing it. Like even the organs in your body, right? Your heart keeps pumping. Like sometimes it just stops. A person just has, his heart just stops. So like Hashem is, we never think of it. We're like, boom, boom. Just put your hand over here. You feel that? Go for it. Peer pressure. Right? You have your heart. You feel that. You wonder where Hashem is in my life. Boom. There He is. Boom. There He is. Boom. There He is. I love you. 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 Right? But we're not focused on it.
Yeah, take it for granted.
Take for granted. But Rabbi Nachman's saying the chiddush is because we're lacking in kedusha. The more kedusha that you add, the more you expand out the day, and then through that you create a shofar, a spiritual shofar for yourself, in which you're blowing through, and that gives you a year. That's where the year comes from. Because with Hashem, we're going to take this as we move into Elul next week. Don't think about tomorrow. It's not about that. It's not like, okay, well, how can I make it happen? No. Just tomorrow, when you wake up, say, what can I do now to add Kedusha into this hour right now? And if you get to the next hour, just ask yourself that question. It's not about pressure. It's not about stress. Not about anxiety. Rabbi Nachman doesn't want you to be stressed. But it's about focusing always on the tachlis. Bring in the Kedusha. The more Kedusha, I'll have Yira. And when I have Yira, I'll lack nothing. not a zivug, not parnasa, not health, not wealth, nothing. You lack nothing. You have us coming from King David. You have Yirut Shamayim, you have everything. Rabbeinu said, I'm a storehouse of Yirut Shamayim, just run after me, and you'll have everything that you need.
Yeah.